And good morning. Welcome everybody to this webinar on how to exit from your estate planning business with pocketfuls of cash. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me this morning. There are 67 people who have registered for this call. My name is Rob Newman. I am the tax partner of a firm of accountants in Greater Manchester called Carter Collins and Meyer. CCM for short. We have been around since 1957, and when I took over the firm in 1999, there was myself, a dog, and a bag of books in the corner. And today we employ 42 people, I believe it is, and undertake deals and transactions and general accountancy right across the Northwest. I'm also directly and heavily involved in estate planning myself, which led me into contact with the Society of Will Writers. And I qualified as a will writer in 2017, I think it is now, which complements well with my tax practice. Making my specialism in tax, I actually spent a number of years buying and selling companies, which I subsequently combined with tax and now look at the tax aspects predominantly of buying and selling companies. But with my business partner, or one of them, Andrew Barker, and myself, we still undertake around 50 to 60 transactions a year in businesses generally. And in the last couple of years, we have done about a dozen law firms and estate planners and will writers businesses, either buy or sell side. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you hopefully now, and we will get going. There will be a recording of this put up onto YouTube at some stage in the future. It will also be available on Zoom to a link to all those who registered for 14 days afterwards. So if you do have to drop out or miss anything, please don't worry. So hopefully we get going with this. I might turn the camera off rather than you seeing my glorious mug all the way through. I'll come back on at the end. There is a facility to take questions. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom call. Please do ask questions as we go along. I will try to answer them at the end. Talk lasts 49 minutes exactly. Yeah, that's probably a bit of marketing fluff there. It's about an hour. I'll set a timer. I'll aim for about 45 minutes, giving us about 15 minutes for any questions anyone has. And see you on the other side. So without further ado, exiting your estate planning business with a pocket full of cash. As Robert De Niro rightly said in the film Ronin, never walk into a room you do not know how to walk out of. And one of the fundamental mistakes we see as accountants over and over and over again is business owners getting neck deep in businesses with no thought of how they're actually ever going to get out of them. One of the best moves you can possibly do is to read a book available on Amazon called The Emyth by Michael Gerber. The Emyth has nothing to do with electronic or all that sort of wonderful stuff nowadays. The E in it stands for entrepreneur, the entrepreneurial myth. Michael Gerber's main contribution to the business world is a phrase everyone has heard of: work on your business, not in it. And in order to do that, his theory is you should treat your business as if it is going to become a franchise. If you go and buy a McDonald's franchise for £250,000, what you actually get is half a dozen books. That's it. One of the quickest and easiest ways of escaping from your business is taking that lesson on board. And if you have not read The Emyth, head to Amazon, spend a couple of quid and do have a read of it. It is enlightening. So, we seem to be stuck on, there we go. Right, that's how we do it. So, about me, yes, loads of qualifications, been in this rubbish for many years, and as I've said, giving you my wonderful view of the world. What we're covering: how to set yourself up for exit, what buyers look for, how to set yourself up to be valuable, the market price now for estate planning businesses, and wow, hasn't 2020 been an interesting year? How to structure a deal, how long you can expect the whole thing to take, and why you should use a specialist accountant rather than your local fella. Without further ado, I am going to tell you the market price for businesses. But first, events of the last few weeks, few years, hell and Armageddon, as you can see there. We've gone from Brexit crisis to unstable governments to coronavirus, the C word, to everything that's going on. We've got life after the divorce upcoming. We still have no idea where we are in terms of the pandemic. And it is leading to one thing: no confidence. It's no confidence in the business world. There are lots and lots of people still on furlough. The government have put out there's about 1 million people still on furlough. It is believed that most of those jobs are dead. However, the Bank of England chief economist has actually said the 20% downfall in GDP has already been recovered and is only faltering again because of the local lockdowns that are in place. House prices are soaring more than they ever have for years, and transactions of businesses have picked up. We have more deals ongoing than we have ever seen since 2008. The main reason why deals, I think, are crystallizing is probably the reason some of you are on this call. You've decided you've had enough. Those who were hanging on and thinking about retiring in the near future probably have crystallized it and have decided to do it now. They are sick of it and don't want the I have no idea what's coming routine. Whereas those coming into the industry or already looking to expand see this as a prime time opportunity, particularly with the cheap money that is available. Bounce back loans are something that you should have taken in your business if you consider that you are going to keep trading. You will never get made an offer like it. And even if you are not, it is a way of exiting your business, which we will come on to when we get that to the stage of structuring deals. CBILS money is, again, very easy to obtain. We as a firm took a CBILS loan with no real intention in mind other than we might need it at some point. We have decided we are going to use that as a fighting fund to acquire other businesses. There are plenty of people out there in this position as well. We are already advising plenty of them. If you have thoughts down this end or to this structure, I would urge you to talk to your own bank quickly. Applications close the 30th of November for deals to be completed by the 31st of December with a 10-year repayment timeframe. Wow. Try and get an unsecured loan for that length of time at 2% with no guarantees. Almost impossible, but now currently available. Why would you not? So is there no confidence around? Well, in some people, yes, and in some people, no. Like all crises, it's weird times out there, but we see that the market is holding strong. We currently have 2 buyers for estate planning firms, and we are currently working with 3 sellers of estate planning firms. We do publish a monthly deal sheet, which we put out to all 3,500 people on our mailing list. And if you are interested in buying or selling, please email me at robert.newman@uk-ccm.com, and I will happily add you as a one-liner on there. If we get any interest, we can follow it up from there. So, what is the market price? Well, I'm still keeping you in suspense. The market price for estate planning, let's get it over and done with. Ultimately, a business is worth what someone else will pay you for it. I have to say this over and over and over again to all forms of businesses when they come to buy and sell their business. Because, as a prime example, about 5 years ago, I had a client who converted vans into high-end mobile homes. He did them to yacht standards. They were or are very, very well done, but they're also very expensive. Unfortunately, he got diagnosed with cancer and decided it was time to exit his business and asked me for a valuation. And I said something in the region of £750,000. 2 weeks later, we got an all cash offer, which is rare. And again, something else I'll cover on this call, for £2.5 million. That means he got £2.5 million in cash by bank transfer at completion. No clawbacks, no retentions, no earnouts, no anything. What's that? 4 predicted? Three times more. Mental arithmetic's not my strong point. I can happily do it on a spreadsheet. It's a black art what valuations are. The one thing I will say is a lot of the business brokers will overvalue your business to get you to sign up with them, as they charge you an upfront marketing fee. There is one particular agency who shall remain nameless, who I have come across dozens and dozens of times, who will turn around and tell you that your little business that makes £10,000 a year profit is worth £1 million. And in order to get that £1 million, all you've got to do is pay them 10 grand up front. You pay the 10 grand, they sign you into a contract saying that if you ever sell the business ever, you have to pay them a percentage of it. And then you probably hear nothing ever again. Yes, if you want an active approach to selling, you are going to have to pay something towards that active approach, but just for listing you on a website should be free, which is what most of these people do. Again, the typical valuations that are put out there are 10 times earnings. Well, for a floated company, quite possibly, but for small businesses, certainly not. And definitely not that in the estate planning world, as I will show you on the next slide. My second mantra, which I always work to and drum into my M&A team, is no deal is done till it's done. Once you start the process of selling a business, it's so tempting to think that it's all happening, it's all there, and you can see this pocket full of cash coming. So you stop paying attention to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and you start mentally spending the cash you are going to get. I have sat in a deal in the city of London for many millions of pounds where the buyer took the cap off of their fountain pen, touched the fountain pen to the contract, said, just tell me about ABC again. And when they were told, they lifted their fountain pen from the contract, put the cap back on it and said, I'm never doing this deal, and walked out. Until the signature is on the piece of paper and the bank transfers have been made, it's not real. It's only in planning. And if you start down the line of business succession, know that it is hugely important. The other thing that you must always take into account is that both sides believe the other side is a lying scumbag. The buyer always thinks the seller is lying to them. The seller always thinks the buyer is lying to them. It's amazing that any deals ever get done. Walk into every deal knowing that. And finally, if you come to me looking to sell, the first question I will say to you is, what are you going to do when you do? I have seen so many business owners of all types sell out and then think, what the hell do I do now? And I include myself in this. Yes, I came to CCM in 1999, but prior to that, I was a partner in another firm of accountants. We got offered an amazing deal by a national to sell out. It sounded fantastic when I was sitting there with, what was it, 87 post-it notes received in a day, stuck to my computer screen with telephone calls to return, thinking, how the hell am I ever going to manage all of this? I'm going to cash in my chips and walk out. We did. As a partnership, we sold out to National. I got a reasonable check. And 3 weeks later, I was sitting on my settee at home thinking, my God, what on earth am I going to do with the rest of my life? If you have a specific plan, great. If you don't, and you have a lifestyle business now, and you really don't know what you are going to do when you sell it out, if you sell it out, why sell it out? Why not just run it into the ground? A form of exit planning is running it into the ground. keep ticking it over and actually get to the point where nothing is left. Fine, nothing wrong with that. You've maximized your return. And in truth, all you are doing is realizing the value over a longer term that a buyer is paying for upfront. It actually does give you something to do, and at the same time can actually be quite pleasurable, even though when you're in the height of the battle, it may not feel like it. So, drum roll. The market price now. We finally get there. Well, there's two parts to it. And I'm putting this at the beginning, by the way, because if this is all you're actually interested in, you can leave a call at that stage and not listen to me drone on and on and on about structuring deals. But I'm sure you are absolutely, utterly excited by my dulcet tones and will want to stay with me. As you can see on the screen, there's two parts to the estate planning business. There's the will bank, there's the estate planning fees. The will banks are very easy to sell. There are millions of buyers out there. Law firms will have these off you all day long. Other estate planning firms, trust firms, etc., etc. Specialist will banks, storage solutions. These sell typically for £75 to £100 per will, paid over 2 installments with a clawback. So to make the maths easy, let's say you agree £100 per will. You will get half of it up front, so 50 quid, and the other half at the second installment, which is typically 12 months later, less anybody that hasn't actually decided to stay with you. Which means if everybody walks out the door, you're handing back the first chunk that you've received, unless you put that in the contract otherwise. Think about that for a moment. I will talk more about deferred consideration. Almost no deals are done on cash at completion. And if that's what you want, halve all of these numbers. The estate planning fees, the goodwill, will typically sell for 0.25 to 0.5 times last year's total fees. This is much easier to sell if it's under a brand than under a personal identity. It's much easier to sell if your clients are younger. It's much easier to sell if you've got a CRM system in place and are already regularly contacting them. And if you are not regularly contacting them, for God's sakes, go out and start now. Get yourself MailChimp. I think you can have a couple of hundred users on there for free. After that, it's only a couple of quid. The process of staying in touch with your customers significantly improves the goodwill of your business and allows you to seek the fees very much at the top end of it rather than the lower end of it. Goodwill includes all of the intangibles of your business. That's what they're buying. The tangible elements of your business, the debtors, the will bank, the desks and chairs, all the hard stuff you can kick, is separate, but not very worth, other than the will bank, not worth very much. The intangible stuff is the branding, the history, the logo, the design, the feel, the approach that you take to things, the systems that you use, the know-how that you have. We have done a dozen deals at this money, albeit most of those are at the 0.25 rather than the 0.5, because most of the businesses don't tend to have CRM, don't tend to contact their customers regularly, don't tend to undertake reviews, or if they are doing reviews, are doing them for free. Free reviews reduces the value of your business because they put a burden on the buyer that the buyer has to now undertake at a cost to them, whereas paid for reviews don't put that same burden on the buyer and actually generate a cash flow. The will bank part, as I say, much easier to sell if you have it. If you are not storing wills, do a deal with someone, start storing them, start earning from this. I know of a couple of suppliers for this, including ourselves. We have a secure storage facility available. So Having got that part out of the way, how to set yourself up for exit. Before you even think about placing your business for sale, there are things you should gather. This is a checklist. As I say, this will all be available for repeat, and I will happily send out the slides to anyone that wants them. Make sure you have 3 years profit and loss statements. Make sure you have your tax returns, a list of equipment, fixtures, websites, logins, details, software licenses, know-how that you have, where everything is and what it is. Create a book of your business. Make sure you've got any lease and lease-related documents if you're operating out of business premises, a list of any loans that you may have taken out, copies of any equipment leases, franchise agreements, regulatory agreements, professional indemnity insurance, claims against you, anything that you have on storage, and any names and addresses of outside advisors. In other words, if you were buying a business, what would you want to know? You want to get under the skin of this thing. You want to know what's going on there. You want to know what's happening. So again, the more documented processes you have, the easier this is for the buyer. The more rigid and structured your files are, the better it is for the buyer. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a filing cabinet full of stuff. We abandoned paper use, almost no paper. It's impossible to have none, but almost none. We store everything as PDFs and can fit it all on a large external drive of about 1 terabyte. That means if you bought my accountancy firm, I can hand it to you in a small mailing bag. That is actually appealing for buyers if they can shift it like that. So do think about starting to use technology if you are not already. It isn't scary. I honest to God promise you. I am an absolute old school Luddite. Even I knew nothing about Zoom even whatsoever until about April this year. I spent a couple of hours learning how to do this stuff, and now I spend probably 3 hours a day on it. It's not scary things. Honestly, get your systems in a state whereby they are easy for somebody else to take over. And in so doing, you might well find that another exit approach arises. My preferred exit approach arises. But I'm going to keep you in suspense about that. Getting yourself ready, part 2. You should then, as I said, ensure documents and processes have a very clear, detailed, and analyzed client list. This is the main asset of your business. I'll repeat that. Have a very clear, detailed, and analyzed client list. This is the main asset of your business. Mr. Smith, address, telephone, email, what you did for him, what you charged him, last time you spoke to him, where his documents are. For everybody, ever. If you've got that, the value of your business is pushing up on the pure estate planning side to the 0.5, and on the will side to that £100. The more documentation, the more system, the more structure, the more Emyth you have your business, the better it is to sell, the easier it is to sell, because it doesn't need you. It's not what's in your head. It's written on a piece of paper, or ideally nowadays electronically. Other thing to do is tidy up any potential shareholder issues. If your ex-wife owns some shares in your company, buy her out. If you had an ex-business partner, buy her out. I have a deal ongoing now, nothing to do with estate planning. It's entirely different business. There is a minority shareholder that left the business 15 years ago. They still own 10%, and we cannot get a deal complete on a buyer because the minority shareholder won't agree to make the sale, and there are no drag and tag provisions in any form of shareholder agreement because none exists. So if you've got external shareholders, please, please, please tidy up the issues. Go and talk to your accountant if you don't know what to do. Go and talk to your lawyer if you need that. Get it sorted. Appoint professional advisors. Yeah, your local guy would be quite good and they can do your tax returns, but this is a specialized area. And if you're not used to doing this stuff, they are going to struggle and they'll come up with some stupid nonsense for you. I saw a local account. I have a buyer buying an engineering business at the moment. He had offered 1.2 million pounds for it. The seller's accountant said it was worth 3 million quid. I told the seller to get his accountant to sell it and give the accountant 50% of the difference between the 1.2 million and the 3 million pounds the accountant could get for it, if the accountant could do that in 21 days, because nobody on God's green earth is going to give that amount of money for it. That seller ended up coming back to my buyer 30 days later because his accountant was useless and couldn't do anything. And my buyer knocked 300 grand off of the purchase price because he now knew the guy was desperate. So get the right advisors. Your local conveyancing lawyer is not going to be able to help you on this. You need an M&A specialist again, but even that depends on the size of your business, because it might just be worth doing it on head. Maximize cash up front is the other thing worth mentioning here. Pre-dividend strip. It sometimes is worth getting all the cash out of the business up front and selling a shell. I'll touch on that later, actually. I'll touch on that more in structuring deals. So what buyers look for. Why do people buy businesses? Why does anybody buy businesses? And the irony is, right now, because of all stuff, I nearly swore there, and those of you that know me on this call know that I am an ex-squaddy and have a terrible potty mouth. So please forgive me if I do break out in swearing. I don't mean anything by it. It is just punctuation for me. But I will try and resist. The buyers of businesses buy businesses because they need something to do. And recessions have proven over and over and over again that new small businesses are more likely to start at that time than at any other time. They are a brilliant opportunity to sell your business. They bring people in over and over. So layoff, redundancies, transfers, early retirements bring people into it. Job dissatisfaction where they are. They want to have more control over their lives. They desire to do their own thing. Or if you're dealing with larger businesses, it's more about expansion and economies of scale. So if you are looking to sell your business to attract the buyer, think of these. Think of WII FM, everybody's favorite radio station. What's in it for me? If you can make the pitch to the buyer of WII FM, what's in it for me? Why should they buy your business? You are far, 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 far more likely to get that 0.5 and that £100 than you are the 0.25 or the 50, the 75 quid, or even the 50 quid, or as some estate planners have been telling me, they can't sell it whatsoever. What buyers are looking for? Well, here is my little pot statistics. I tend to find they are usually male. 50% or less have 50% have, less than £100,000 to invest. This usually comes from some form of remortgage of their personal property, release from a pension pot, or generally savings. They usually need their family's agreement. Most haven't bought a business before and are green. Money doesn't tend to be the motivator for most people in starting a business. And for those of you that are on this call will know, you probably would have earned more if you'd stayed working for somebody else. I certainly believe I would have done over the years. However, I have managed to create a significantly good lifestyle for myself, including about 12 weeks holiday a year in normal years, which I couldn't possibly get anywhere else. There are other fringe things that allow me to have a life which I prefer, rather than simply getting an enormous paycheck. Money is important, obviously, but that's not what motivates them. So don't think necessarily that huge profits in your business are the ultimate be all and end all. Huge profits in service businesses usually means that you're just doing too much work yourself, which means it's not as saleable because the person coming into it has to directly and utterly replace you. And a lot of them, certainly if they are corporate buyers, do not want to buy jobs, they want to buy a business. Think about that carefully. Buyers are looking for 3. Yeah, I think I've touched on all those. Skip that one, done it. So how to set yourself up to be valuable. I have talked a lot of this as we've gone through, and with 20 odd minutes going, I promise some of this now does start being repetition because I kind of tend to end up front loading things. So in order to make a decision, in order to help the decision of the buyer, you have to have things ready for them. Again, I've been stressing this all the way through WIIFM. To make it easy to sell, you should clearly set out the required amount of money they need for the business. Not just buying it from you, but the working capital as well. Have cash flow plans ready. Take the time, effort, and energy to put together a business plan for the buyer. Have it there available to them. They're new to business, most of them. 50% at least have never done this before, and their own banks will be asking it for them. They don't know what to do. And the number of clueless buyers that come to me is staggering. If you as a seller have a pack ready for them, including financial forecasts, including a business plan, including information and details and structure of how to do this, have it under an NDA, have it available through a data room on an accountant on an anonymized basis until the very last second, if that's what you need to do, but have that clearly available. My becomes such a valuable commodity to a buyer. You become something that's absolutely special and unique, pointing out what is going to be their life. Make it clear. In doing this, you will also eliminate the men of straw. Those that would love to own a business, but don't really want to have the stress, aggro, and pressure when it comes down to it. And again, so much wasted time and opportunity is put into developing people in that basis. Particularly, I mean, you guys are all seriously experienced in will writing and estate planning, and you can smell the time wasters a mile off, but you're not familiar with those tire kickers that come along in terms of buying businesses. And there are masses and masses of them out there who will waste your time at different stages and have no intention of it. So the easiest way to demonstrate that is to get rid of them, is to demonstrate how hard this actually is and how difficult it will be to take over. You will narrow the field significantly, get them down to the real players, and identify those who are worth investing in. Yep, talked about this. Cash flow, sit down, create a cash flow statement. Cash flow is not the same thing as profit. Most buyers are buying cash flow, not profit. Because they have to finance it. This needs to include the remuneration paid to the buyer of the business. It needs to include taxation. It needs to include anything that is necessary to function the business, but exclude all the stuff that you're putting through your own business now that is questionable. I can't think of an appropriate word other than that. Questionable is the stuff that you are putting through that you don't need to run your business, but is quite nice to do. So, for example, the car that you run on your business, that doesn't really need to be. The cleaner who cleans your office, even though your office is in your house, and whilst they're cleaning the office, they clean the rest of the house. The flowers that you use for reception that are sitting in your dining room, and all the other stuff. Yes, I'm very aware of it, as is HMRC and everybody else, but that is the joys of self-employment. That is the fantastic thing, that when you go out and buy that new Dyson cordless Hoover and claim it's for the office, you've actually taken that home and whilst putting your knackered old Hoover in the actual office, etc., etc. All of that needs to be stripped out of the cash flow because that's the buyer's decision. What needs to be and then needs to be put in is how much money they are going to need to live, and be realistic. No one can live on 500 quid a month. Most buyers are going to need a few £1,000s out of this to justify it, plus money to repay any loans they've taken, plus other money that they are going to need. Be realistic. You can strip out from cash flow statements non-cash items, amortization, interest expenses, etc. These can be removed by any decent accountant who can put this together for you. None of this is stuff that most accountants will be thinking of if you're talking to them. And my experience is the good business brokers will do it. The good M&A accountants will do it, but the high street guys won't. I honestly promise you. I would actually stress at this point, all of this stuff I'm talking about is equally as applicable if you are coming across estate planning clients who themselves own businesses. And my personal bête noire with the society is not promoting that aspect of estate planning more. It's a huge, huge industry and market. Business owners themselves have complicated affairs. It's the nature of the beast. You can add massive value to that, far, far more than you can add to Mr. and Mrs. Miggins who own a little house somewhere and have an ISA. Honestly, think about getting more involved in that stuff. I shout out loud from the rooftops about it. The other thing is the actual data to do it's far more readily available. It's all pretty much sitting outside of GDPR. But that's the subject for another course. In fact, I actually did run a course for a couple of years at the Society about targeting those sort of clients. So if anybody came on that, well done. And if they didn't, please campaign with the Society to bring me back for that, even if it's on Zoom. Anyway, moving on. Setting yourself up to be valuable. 3. Yeah, another book recommendation. If you haven't read Broken Windows, Broken Business, do so. It's probably about 25 to 30-year-old now. It's on Amazon for a couple of quid. The title actually captures it. Broken Windows, Broken Business. Right. You walk in or you see that sandwich shop with the sign hanging off and a big piece of gaffer tape across the window. And across the street is the sandwich shop with a nice, shiny glass window that's just freshly polished and a sign that's clean and tidy and all there. Which one are you going to walk into? Exactly. Simple as, isn't it? Just think of it as yourself. Again, quoting from the McDonald's thing, Ray Kroc was once asked at Harvard Business School, what separates the business owner from the worker? And Ray Kroc turned the question around and started asking the audience, and they came up with all sorts of things. And he said, you've all got it wrong. What separates the business owner from the worker is simply the business owner will pick up the rubbish on the floor when they see it. It's something that is hugely reminiscent of my own situation. Will always answer the telephone at any time of late at night, and I will always deal with whatever rubbish has arisen. Fix the problem, fix the sign, replace the carpet, paint the place, etc., etc. If your branding is rubbish, get on people per hour and get a new logo made for 10 quid. Get some new business cards, have that letterhead, upgrade the software, make the place good now. Yeah, okay, that'll have a short-term impact, but my God, the impact it'll have on selling. Think of selling your house. You don't sell your house when you've got every room full of rubbish. You don't shift it by having peeling paint on the walls and by having a dank smell around. You shift it by cleaning it, tidying it, painting it, putting fresh bread and coffee on and making it look its absolute tip-top best. You've got to do the same with a business if you're going to sell it, both physically and financially. Other things that add value to your business is the proprietary products or techniques that you have, i.e. your processes, those pieces of paper and forms that you have, the way you do things, the structure that you have in place, the secret sauce that you use. That was a real trendy phrase for a while, wasn't it? The secret sauce. I think I must have thrown that in there a while ago when I put that on. Sounds a bit cliched now, but I still think you know what I mean. The stuff that makes you, you. Capture it, write it down, put it down on paper or screen or whatever. Have that book of this is how we do stuff here. Right? If you've got that, the value it creates and the price it puts up is significant. 4, and most importantly, eliminate surprises. The most important lesson to increase the value of your business is to eliminate surprises. Do not let somebody get to the stage of due diligence to find a horror story. You might have a professional negligence claim against you. It happens. It's part of life. But once someone has signed an NDA and are starting the due diligence process, tell them about it in full. Now, they might walk away. Yeah, okay, but at least nobody's wasted their time. If they don't walk away, the risk can be managed. I have personally no problem in buying a problematic business. I have bought and sold businesses on my own ticket that have been distressed and in admin, nothing to do with accountancy. War stories for another occasion if I had more time, actually. I could easily go off on a tangent with that one. But if you know of the problems, that's fine. That's no problem. I can deal with them. Or I'm going to walk away depending on what the problem is. Most of the time, I'll deal with it. Tell the surprises up front. Don't make me find it out at the last second. The reason in that example I gave before where the fountain pen was put on the contract and they walked away is they turned out that there was a claim for asbestosis in the factory 50 years ago that they hadn't been told about until 5 minutes before the signing of the contract. 5 minutes before the signing, they came out with this massive, massive legal problem, thinking, oh, it's too late now, they'll go through with it. They didn't. They just walked, as would anybody in that circumstance. Now, if they'd known it up front, they may have been able to buy a policy to cover it. They could have bought a policy to cover it. Yes, it would have an effect on the purchase price, but the seller would have still sold and the buyer would have still bought and you could still get the deal across the line. Eliminate surprises. How to structure a deal. Right. I could spend 2 days on this. And again, I used to run a course that lasted 2 days for the society that covered a lot of this stuff. And a question did pop up before. And yes, I am always interested in speaking gigs. So for that person, be delighted to help out. I, as you probably have guessed, love the sound of my own voice. I do a number of speaking gigs in places and have no fear of them. And if anybody would like me to do things, I'd be delighted to join you. In terms of structuring a deal, I lifted that thing you can see on screen. I don't know Tony Groom, but I lifted it from a public posting the gentleman put on LinkedIn. I'm going to read it to you carefully because it describes most external sales. Anyone selling their business, I am happy to agree and accept to pay. I'm happy to accept and agree to pay their number so long as I structure the deal. So long as I structure the deal. My overriding objective is to get control of the business with great potential. Vendor bragging rights in a pub are often worth far more than the actual reality of receiving the cash. Reality, however, is rare, hence the huge reality gap between vendors and buyers. Read that quote carefully. This guy is saying he'll agree any number you like, provided he gets to write down how you get paid that number. Because if he gets to write down how you get paid that number, I can assure as hell, at least swore again there, I can assure as hell guarantee you ain't getting that number. I have done and advised and been on both sides of deals where the earn out appears amazing. You're going to get £1 million, except I'm then employed to make sure you don't. I'm sent in after the deal to find every reason not to pay you. External deals is what everybody thinks of in terms of selling a business. Everybody thinks I'm going to find some third party who's going to write me a massive check and I can head off into the sunset. And out of the 200 deals I have done over the last 25 years, less than 10 have been on that basis. All deals are done on deferred consideration. Deferred consideration is where you get a proportion of the purchase price up front and the rest of it on the drip, depending on what happens to the business. Typically, for estate planning, you'll get a third of the total deal price up front, with 2/3 on the drip, usually at 12 and 24 months. Depending on the way the deal is structured and the contracts are written and the whole thing is put together, you are running huge risks of never seeing the rest of the money. If you structure the deal right, you can ensure that the conditions are put in place whereby you have a better chance of seeing all of the money. Less than 10% of any deal is far less. I'd say it's actually, I haven't got the exact numbers in front of me. I'd say it's probably less than 5% of any deal I have ever done over a quarter of a century have I ever seen the buyer get 100% of the cash. Think about that. Which has led me to the conclusion that internal deals usually work better. But internal deals take a great deal more structure and thought and time than external deals do. I'm going to give you the example of the perfect internal deal because it comes from the world of accountancy. The perfect internal deal is such that the partner of the firm, 5 or 6 years before they want to retire, decides they are going to retire. They then turn to their underling, tell them that they're going to retire and would like them to take over. Over the next 5 years, the partner continues to take the same amount of money they did before, but they take it as an earnout on deferred consideration, meaning they can get business asset disposal, or business asset relief, whatever it's called nowadays. Yeah, the old entrepreneur's relief, right? And pay 10% taxes. They then do 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day and gone. The underling does more and more of the partner's work and earns no more money. In fact, probably might even earn less money, but over that 5-year time frame, eventually ends up owning the partner's share. Now, you may well think, well, what advantage is this to me? The advantage is you get the tax benefit of leaving with a clear succession plan, with control over the cash you are being paid for leaving in a far more structured way than you ever possibly could if a third-party buyer was coming in offering deferred consideration. Under deferred consideration, you have no control from the moment the buyer arrives. Under an internal earn-out deal, a management buyout, or whatever you want to call it, that's my 45 minutes. I promise I'll start wrapping up shortly. Under an internal deal structured so that you have somebody coming through, you have far more control. Which brings me back to the beginning of this, where I said to you, business is worth far more if it doesn't need you and you have clear structures and processes. Because if you have clear structures and processes, it's going to be possible to bring in that person much, much earlier. And even if you're a one-man bander, it's going to be a lot more available to you to join somewhere else, to merge with another firm, to bring in an apprentice, have a clear structure, a clear defined way of doing things, and for you to then exit. Don't discount this. Don't expect that you're going to get a huge pot of cash at the end by a third party coming along giving you it. You have to engineer this yourself through a structured, systematic approach of moving yourself away from being at the front line and having other people able to do it. Now, in doing that, you may decide never to actually leave. That's a different consideration. I think that time comes when everybody eventually does want to leave and pass on the problem. because there always is a problem being the business owner. But if you have put in place the things I have told you about on this, you will be able to find people to work with or to work for you, allowing you to do less and less. I have a deal like this in progress right now, where the will writer is still practicing 2 days a week, but has joined a larger organization who is taking on all the rest of it for essentially free. He continues to earn all the money from across the portfolio, and in another 2 years' time, he will have gone, and the will writing practice, the larger will writing practice, will own his client bank. He has maximized his return for the investment he has made. He will get 100% of the consideration that he was expecting, and he will have paid 10% tax on it. So how long? We've talked about all of that. Deferred consideration. Yeah, all of that. How long will it take? 18 months pre-completion, 36 months post-completion. About 5 years, all in. Yeah, can be done quicker. Certainly if you've got a distressed deal, I've seen a third party buy it in a week, but don't expect top money. In that case, the will bank got bought for 25 quid a go, and they got nothing for the estate planning fees. Sold in a week, family got rid of the problem. If you are that desperate, talk to me. I have buyers waiting who will do those deals. So why use a specialist? Well, clearly, as I have bored you to death on this, I have done loads of it. I've got loads of experience, and I certainly know how to structure deals. I know where to go and how to find people. I'm not alone. There are others in the country who can do this. My business partner is also very good at it. Andy Barker, available at andrew.barker@uk-ccm.com or 01706 860 255. Numbers on the screen now. We do loads and loads of M&A work. We have experience of doing it across a broad spectrum of industries, and we have specific experience in this world. If we can help you, we'd be delighted. If not, I'd urge you to make sure you are using somebody who is familiar with your industry. That is everything from me. I could run for a week on this. Honest to God, I really could. I have had a couple of questions through this. I have tried to answer those as we've gone along. And certainly to Neil Fraser, I would love to take you up on that. Please do email me at robert.newman@uk-ccm.com or inquiries@uk-ccm.com. That'll come to me as well. If anybody else has got anything, I will stay on this call for a few more minutes. Other than that, thank you so much for listening. I really, really, really appreciate your time. That's me, Rob Newman from CCM. I hope this has been useful to you.